She grew up in a house where she never truly belonged. From the time she could remember, she had been told, sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, that she was a burden. Her parents had died when she was very young, so young that her memories of them felt more like dreams than real moments. A warm voice calling her name, a hand brushing her hair, a feeling of safety that disappeared too soon. After that, life became heavy. She lived with distant relatives in a small village where everyone knew everyone else's business. The house was old, with cracked walls and a leaking roof. During the rainy season, water would drip onto the floor, and she would place small bowls underneath to catch it. No one taught her how to do this. She learned because no one else would. From sunrise to sunset, she worked. She cleaned, cooked, washed clothes, fetched water, and took care of children who were not hers. When she was tired, she was told she was lazy. When she ate a little extra, she was told she was greedy. Something went missing, eyes would turn toward her first. She learned early to keep her head down and her voice quiet at night. When everyone slept, she would lie on a thin mat and stare at the ceiling. Sometimes she wondered what her life would have been like if her parents were alive. Would she still be treated this way? Would someone have protected her? These thoughts usually ended with tears she wiped away quickly, afraid even the walls might judge her. In the village, people spoke softly about her. Poor orphan girl, they would say. Some said it with pity, others with relief that it was not their fate. Few ever asked how she felt. No one asked what she wanted. Her life was something decided by others. As she grew older, her presence became more uncomfortable for the family she lived with. She was no longer a child who could be ignored easily. She was a responsibility. Relatives began to whisper about marriage, not because they cared about her future, but because they wanted her gone. Marriage, in that village, was not about love for girls like her. It was about survival. It was about removing a burden from one household and placing it onto another. Usually families searched for good matches, men with land, jobs, or strong family backgrounds. But she had nothing to offer. No parents, no money, no dowry. Just herself. When people came to see her, they looked disappointed. Some did not even hide it. A few asked questions, not about her character, but about what she could bring with her. When the answer was nothing, the conversation ended quickly. Her relatives grew frustrated. Feeding her, clothing her, answering questions about her future, it all felt like a waste to them. They wanted a solution that cost them nothing. That solution appeared in the form of a man no one wanted to talk about. He lived on the edge of the village, in a broken house that looked like it might collapse with one strong wind. People said he was poor, unlucky, and strange. He kept to himself, worked odd jobs, and never complained. Some said he had no future. Others said he was useless. No one respected him. When his name was mentioned as a possible husband for her, there was laughter. Not joyful laughter, but the kind that comes with mockery. Two burdens together, someone said. At least they'll understand each other, another replied. No one asked her what she thought the day she was told about the marriage. She felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She was sitting on the floor folding clothes. When the words were spoken so casually, as if they were discussing the weather. You will be married next week, someone said. No explanation. No discussion. She froze. Her hands stopped moving. Her heart began to race. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, to say something, anything, but her voice did not come out. Years of silence had trained her well. That night she cried quietly into her mat. She did not cry because the man was poor. Poverty was all she had ever known. She cried because she was afraid of the unknown, afraid of being trapped in another life where she had no choice. The wedding preparations were minimal. No celebration, no joy. Just a few borrowed items, some simple food, and a dress that had been worn before. As she put it on, she looked at herself and barely recognized the girl staring back. Her eyes looked older than her age. The wedding day arrived without excitement. Villagers gathered, not to bless the union, but to watch it. Some whispered, some laughed, some shook their heads. She felt every look like a weight pressing down on her chest. The man stood beside her, wearing old clothes that did not fit properly. He looked tired but calm. He did not smile, but he did not look ashamed either. When their eyes met briefly, she looked away quickly, unsure of what she would see there. The ceremony was short. Words were spoken. Promises were made, though she did not remember making any. Her mind felt far away, as if she were watching someone else's life unfold. When it was over, her relatives did not hug her. They did not cry. They simply turned away, their responsibility finished. She was handed over like an object that had finally found a place to be stored. As she walked away from the house she had grown up in, she felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear of what awaited her, relief that the chapter of constant rejection was over. Even if another uncertain one had begun, the path to her new home was quiet. The man walked beside her, carrying the few belongings she had. He did not rush her, he did not speak much. But when she stumbled on the uneven ground, he slowed his steps to match hers. His house was smaller than the one she left. The roof sagged. The door creaked. Inside, there was almost nothing. A few utensils, a mat, and a small stove. She swallowed hard, wondering how they would survive. That night, as they sat in silence, he finally spoke. His voice was gentle, almost careful. He told her she was safe. He told her he would never force her to do anything she did not want to do. He told her she could rest. She did not know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. As she lay down listening to the sounds of the night, she realized something that scared her even more than poverty. For the first time in her life, she was not being treated like a burden, and she did not know what to do with that feeling. The morning after the wedding felt strange to her. She woke up slowly, unsure of where she was for a few seconds. The thin mat beneath her felt rough, and the smell of old wood and dust filled the air. When she opened her eyes fully, she remembered everything. She was married now. This small, broken house was her home. She sat up quietly. The man was already awake. He was outside, washing his face with water from a small metal pot. He did not notice her at first. He moved calmly, without rush, as if he had all the time in the world. She watched him from the doorway, unsure what she was expected to do. In the house she grew up in, mornings were full of shouting and orders. Here there was silence. It made her nervous. When he noticed her, he nodded gently, not surprised, not demanding anything. He asked if she was hungry. The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in a long time. She shook her head without thinking, then quickly changed it to a small nod. There was little food, a bit of dry bread and some tea. He broke the bread in half and pushed the larger piece toward her. She hesitated, but he insisted with a look, not words. She ate slowly, feeling uncomfortable but also confused. Why was he doing this? The day passed quietly. He left to look for work, telling her he would return before dark. He did not give instructions or rules, did not tell her what kind of wife she should be. That scared her more than shouting ever did. Alone in the house, she cleaned what little there was to clean. She arranged the utensils neatly, swept the floor, and tried to fix a crack in the wall with mud. Her hands moved out of habit. Working was the only way she knew how to exist. When he returned in the evening, he brought a small bag of rice. He looked tired, dust covering his clothes, but his face remained calm. He cooked while she watched, unsure if she was allowed to help. When she stood up to assist, he thanked her softly. They ate together in silence. Days turned into weeks. Life did not become easier, but it became different. Poverty was still there, sitting with them like an uninvited guest. But something else shared the space now. Respect. He never raised his voice. He never complained about her past. Never reminded her that she brought nothing into the marriage. Instead, he spoke little and listened more. When she spoke, he looked at her as if her words mattered. She began to notice small things. He always woke up early. He kept himself clean even when clothes were old. He read sometimes, using a worn book he kept hidden in a cloth. She had never seen a poor man read like that. At night he would sit outside looking at the sky. Sometimes she joined him, sitting a little distance away. He did not force conversation, but when he spoke, his words were thoughtful. He spoke about patience, about dignity, about how people often misunderstand what they see. Villagers continued to mock them. When she went to fetch water, women whispered and smiled in pity. Some asked if she regretted her marriage. Others warned her that a man like him could never give her a good life. She listened quietly and said nothing. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. A man from the nearby town came looking for her husband. He was well-dressed, clean, and spoke politely. She watched from inside as they talked. Their conversation was short. The visitor bowed his head slightly before leaving. She asked her husband who the man was. He replied simply that it was someone he once helped. The answer felt incomplete, but she did not push. Similar moments followed. Once a shopkeeper refused to take money from him. Another time, a stranger greeted him with respect. These moments were rare, but noticeable. At the same time, their needs were always met in strange ways. Food appeared when it should not have been possible. A broken roof was repaired without explanation. When she asked questions, he smiled gently and said, "Not everything needed an answer." She began to feel torn. Gratitude filled her heart, but so did confusion. She had learned to accept suffering easily, but kindness felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. One evening, she finally gathered the courage to speak. She told him she did not understand him. She told him she was afraid that one day he would change, that his kindness would disappear. He listened quietly, then spoke words she never expected. He said he knew what it felt like to be judged without being understood. He said some people choose silence because the truth brings problems. She did not fully understand. But his voice was steady, sincere, slowly. Something else grew between them. Trust, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that forms when two people share hardship without hurting each other. She started smiling more. Even if only a little, she slept better. Her body still carried memories of hunger and neglect, but her heart felt lighter. Villagers noticed the change. Some were confused. Some became jealous. How can two poor people look so peaceful? They asked. She did not answer them. One night, he did not return home. Hours passed. Darkness covered the village. Her chest tightened with fear. Old memories rushed back. Lost, abandonment, being left behind. Just before midnight, he returned. He looked exhausted but unharmed. He apologized softly for worrying her. He did not explain where he had been. She wanted to ask, but fear stopped her. Fear of breaking the fragile peace they had built as she lay down that night. Staring into the darkness, she realized something important. For the first time in her life, she was afraid of losing someone not because they controlled her, but because they cared for her. She did not know it yet. But this quiet life was preparing her for a truth far bigger than she could imagine. Life continued in a quiet rhythm, but something inside her had started to change. She was no longer just surviving each day. She was noticing things. Small details that once escaped her now stood out clearly, like marks on a clean wall. She noticed how her husband never panicked about money. Even when there was little food, he remained calm. When the roof leaked again after heavy rain, she expected worry or anger. Instead, he simply placed a pot under the leak and said they would fix it soon. His voice carried certainty, not hope. Soon after, the roof was repaired. Not by him, not by her. A man arrived early in the morning, repaired everything quietly, and left without asking for payment. When she asked how this happened, her husband said someone owed him a favor. The explanation felt light. It's almost too light for something so important. She began to feel a strange mix of comfort and unease. Some days, he would leave early and return late. He never smelled of alcohol, never looked careless. Sometimes his clothes were dusty, sometimes unusually clean. Once she noticed a faint scent she did not recognize, something like polished wood and clean air. It did not belong to the village. She asked him gently where he went. He replied that he worked wherever work was available. His words were simple, but his eyes carried depth. She learned not to ask again. Despite the mystery, their life together felt safe. He never reminded her of her past. He never asked for more than she could give. When she cooked poorly because food was scarce, he thanked her anyway. When she fell sick one afternoon, he stayed home to care for her. Losing a day's wages without complaint, that kindness slowly softened parts of her. that had been hard for years. One afternoon, while washing clothes by the river, she overheard two women talking about her. They were surprised that she still lived peacefully. They expected tears, fights, regret. One said the poor man must be weak to treat his wife so gently. The other laughed and said kindness would not feed them forever. She felt anger rise inside her, but she said nothing. Instead, she finished her work and returned home with heavy thoughts. That evening, she found her husband sitting outside, staring into the distance. She sat beside him, closer than usual. Without looking at her, he asked if people still spoke badly about them. She hesitated, then nodded. He smiled faintly and said, "People often speak from their own pain." He said, "Peace is not loud, so it confuses those who live in noise." His words stayed with her long after. A few days later, something happened that disturbed her deeply. A man from the city arrived again, the same one she had seen before. This time, he came with another person. They stood respectfully, speaking in low voices. She stayed inside, but she could hear parts of the conversation. Numbers were mentioned, deadlines, decisions. When they left, her husband's expression changed. Not worry, not fear control, calm control. She could not sleep that night. Questions filled her mind. Who was he? Why did people from far away treat him differently? Why did poverty never truly defeat them? The next morning, she finally spoke what she had been holding inside. She told him she felt afraid of the unknown. She said she did not need wealth, but she needed honesty. He listened quietly, his face serious. He said some truths come with consequences. He said he never meant to hurt her, only to protect something fragile. When she asked what that something was, he replied softly, "Peace." She wanted to believe him. She did believe him, but curiosity had already taken root. Around this time, the village began to change, toward them. The mocking became softer. People noticed they were never desperate. Some even came to ask for help. Her husband helped when he could, never asking for anything in return. One evening, a child fell sick in the village. The family had no money for treatment. Her husband took the child to the town hospital. The treatment was expensive, yet the child returned healthy 2 days later. Whispers spread quickly. How did he afford it? People asked. She asked herself the same question. That night, she saw something she was not meant to see. Her husband was changing clothes when a small object fell from his pocket. It was a card, thick, clean, nothing like the worn things they owned. She picked it up, her hands trembling. There were words printed on it, words she did not fully understand, but they sounded important. When he noticed the card in her hand, he froze for a moment. Just a moment. Then he walked toward her and gently took it back. He did not scold her. He did not get angry. He only sighed. He told her the truth was not yet ready. He asked her to trust him a little longer. That night she cried quietly, not from sadness, but from confusion. Her heart wanted to trust him completely, but her mind searched for clarity. Days passed, heavy with silence. She watched him more closely now. His habits, his words, his calm reactions. She realized he never reacted like a desperate man. He moved like someone who knew where he was going, even if the road looked broken. Then one day, he told her they would travel to the city together. Just for a short time, he said. The idea frightened her. She had never left the village. The world beyond felt too large. The journey changed everything. The city was loud, fast, and overwhelming. Tall buildings, clean roads, unfamiliar faces. She held on to his arm tightly, afraid she might disappear in the crowd. They entered a building that made her feel small. Inside, people stopped and greeted her husband respectfully. Some stood up when he entered. Others smiled nervously. Her heart began to pound. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw a man she did not know. The poor clothes were the same. The calm expression was the same. But the way people looked at him was different. Full of respect, almost fear. He noticed her shaking hand and squeezed it gently, before she could ask anything. Someone addressed him with a title she had never heard before. The words echoed in her ears. In that moment, The world she understood cracked open. She realized the man she married, the man everyone called Penniless, carried a truth far larger than their village, and she was standing right in the middle of it. Her legs felt weak as she stood. Inside that large building, the air was cool and clean, nothing like the dusty rooms she was used to. People moved with purpose, their clothes neat, their faces serious. She felt out of place. It's like someone who had wandered into a world not meant for her. Yet everyone's attention was on the man beside her. They greeted him with respect. Some nodded. Some smiled carefully. Others spoke in low voices, waiting for his response. No one looked at him like a poor man. No one spoke to him with pity. They listened. Her heart beat so fast, she could hear it in her ears. He noticed her fear immediately. He placed his hand gently on her back, steadying her. That familiar gesture calmed her a little, but the questions in her mind grew louder. Who was he really? How could the same man who struggled to buy bread command so much respect here? They were taken into a quiet room. The door closed softly behind them. She stood near the wall, unsure where to sit. The room was simple but elegant. Clean furniture, soft light. Nothing was wasted, yet nothing looked cheap. Finally, he turned to her. His face was calm, but his eyes carried something heavier, something he had been holding back for a long time. He asked her to sit. She did. Slowly, he took a deep breath, the kind someone takes before saying words that cannot be taken back. He told her he never planned for her to find out like this. He said he wanted to protect her from a life full of expectations, noise, and false people. Then he began to speak. He told her that the poverty she saw was not the truth of his life. He told her that long before he came to the village, he had wealth, businesses, land, and responsibility. He said power had taught him hard lessons. People smiled when they needed him, and disappeared when he needed them. Trust was rare. Peace was impossible. So he walked away. He chose a life where he could breathe, where no one wanted anything from him. Where he could be invisible. She listened, frozen. Each word felt unreal, like a story meant for someone else. He told her he returned to the village because he wanted to live honestly. He wanted to be judged for who he was, not what he owned. And when he saw her, quiet and strong, despite being treated unfairly, he saw something he had never seen in people around wealth: sincerity. He said he married her because she accepted him without knowing anything about him, because she never asked for more than respect, because she looked at him as a human being, not a solution. Tears filled her eyes, but they did not fall yet. She felt many things at once: shock, confusion, relief, anger, fear, her. Voice shook as she asked why he never told her. He answered honestly. He said he was afraid the truth would change everything. He was afraid she would feel trapped, afraid she would think he lied to her from the beginning. She stood up suddenly, overwhelmed. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Cars moved like ants. People rushed through life without noticing each other. Her entire past flashed through her mind. The hunger, the humiliation, the forced marriage, the village laughter, and now this. She felt small. She felt foolish. She felt betrayed. She asked him if their marriage was just an experiment, if he was testing her. The question hurt him deeply. She could see it in his eyes. He stood up slowly and told her no. He told her she was the only real thing in a world full of masks. He said if he had wanted convenience, he could have chosen it long ago. Silence filled the room. She did not know. How long they stood there. Minutes, hours. Time felt broken. Finally, she spoke again. She said she did not know how to be the wife of such a man. She said she came from nothing. She said she was afraid she would lose herself. He walked toward her carefully, as if approaching someone fragile. He told her wealth never defined him. He told her she did not need to change. He said the life he chose with her was real, and he would never force her into a world she did not want. She broke down then. Years of held-in pain poured out. She cried for the child she once was, for the girl who was treated like a burden, for the woman who thought she had no choices. He held her, not tightly, but firmly enough to remind her she was not alone that day. They returned to the place they were staying in the city. She barely spoke. Her mind replayed everything again and again. When she slept, her dreams were restless. The next few days were difficult. She saw more of his world: offices, meetings, people asking for decisions. Respect everywhere. Power that followed him like a shadow. She felt invisible again. He noticed her silence. He noticed her withdrawal. One evening, he asked her if she regretted marrying him. The question scared her. She answered honestly. She said she regretted not knowing the truth sooner. But she did not regret him. That answer seemed to lift a heavy weight from his shoulders. He told her something important then. He said wealth is loud, but peace is quiet. He said he would never let money take away what they had built in silence. Slowly, she began to understand. They returned to the village not long after. Word spread quickly. People noticed the change, the way he walked, the way others treated him. Rumors grew. Some villagers came with apologies. Others came with requests. She watched all of it carefully. She noticed something else too. He did not change. He still ate simply, still spoke kindly, still treated her with the same respect. He did not show off. He did not punish those who mocked him. That realization calmed her heart. One evening, as they sat outside their small house, she finally felt peace settle inside her. She understood that the man she married was not defined by poverty or wealth. He was defined by choice, and he chose her. But the village was not done. Watching the biggest test was yet to come. The village changed slowly, but the change was real. It did not happen overnight. At first, people watched from a distance. They whispered behind closed doors. They counted every movement, every visitor. Every sign that confirmed what they had started to believe. The man they once mocked was not ordinary. She noticed the way people looked at her now. The same eyes that once carried pity now held curiosity. Some held regret. Others held fear. A few tried to smile as if nothing had happened, as if words spoken in the past could be erased easily. She felt strange walking through the same path she once walked with her head lowered. Now her back was straight, but not because of pride. It was because she no longer felt ashamed of existing. People came to their house more often. Some came with excuses. Some came with apologies they struggled to say out loud. Others came with problems, hoping for help. She watched her husband carefully during all of this. He never reminded anyone of how they treated him. He never raised his voice. He listened, helped when he could, and sent people away gently when he could not. There was no revenge in him, only distance. One day, a woman who once laughed at her during the wedding stood at their door. Her eyes were red. Her hand shook. She spoke about her sick child, about debts, about fear. She cried openly. The girl felt her chest tighten. Old memories rushed back. The laughter, the whispers, the humiliation. She looked at her husband, unsure. He nodded once. They helped the woman. That moment changed something inside her. She realized strength was not in proving others wrong, but in choosing kindness even when it hurt. Soon after, she began helping quietly. She helped orphan children with food. She helped young girls learn skills so they would not be treated as burdens like she was. She never announced it. She never took credit. People noticed anyway. Some nights, she sat alone and thought about the girl she used to be. The girl who believed life only gave pain? She wished she could tell that girl to hold on a little longer. Her husband supported her without stepping in front of her. He gave her space to grow. He never turned her kindness into a show. The village elders eventually came to speak with him. They apologized formally. They admitted their mistakes. They asked him to take a leadership role. He refused. He said power without understanding only creates more pain. He said he would help when needed, but he did not want control. That answer shocked them. Life settled into a new balance. They did not leave the village, but they were no longer trapped by it. She traveled sometimes, learning more about the world, but always returned home. One evening, as the sun set behind the fields, She sat beside him outside their house. The same broken house, repaired but unchanged in spirit. The same place where she once felt fear. She realized something important then. Her life did not change because of wealth. It changed because someone saw her worth when she had nothing. She was no longer an orphan in her heart. She was no longer a burden. She was a woman who had survived, learned, and chosen kindness without losing herself. As night fell, she rested her head lightly on his shoulder. There were no grand words, no promises spoken out loud. They had already proven everything through silence, patience, and choice, and that was enough. The village slept, unaware that the greatest story it would ever tell was not about wealth or secrets, but about dignity finding its way home. Time moved forward quietly, the way it always does when people are too busy living to notice it. Life did not suddenly become perfect for her. Problems still came, worries still appeared, and some nights were still heavy with thoughts. But the difference was this: she no longer faced them alone. As her work with orphaned children grew, people from nearby villages began to notice. Some came to observe, some came to question. A few came to learn. She welcomed them all with patience, remembering how it felt to be unseen. She did not speak much about her past unless asked. When she did, she spoke simply, without bitterness. She said pain can either close a heart or open it. She chose the second path, even when it was harder. Her husband continued to live the same way he always had. He dressed simply. He spoke carefully. Those who knew the truth respected him deeply, but he never demanded that respect. He moved quietly through the world, helping where he could, stepping back when needed. Sometimes people expected him to show power. They expected anger for past insults. They expected pride. They were always disappointed. One afternoon, a young girl came to their house. She was thin, scared, and quiet. Her parents were gone. She reminded her of herself so much that it hurt. The girl did not ask for help directly. She only stood there, unsure. She took the girl's hand and brought her inside. That night, as the girl slept safely on a mat nearby, she cried softly. Not from sadness, but from understanding. She realized the pain she survived had prepared her to recognize pain in others. The village slowly became a place of learning. Girls began to be seen as responsibility, not burden. People did not change overnight, but conversations changed. Attitudes shifted little by little. Not everyone approved. There were still those who resented her. Some said she had changed only because of money. Some said she had forgotten her place. Those words no longer hurt the way they once did. She had learned that not every voice deserved space in her heart. One evening, she asked her husband if he ever regretted hiding his truth. The question surprised him. He thought for a long time before answering. He said he regretted the pain confusion caused her. But he did not regret the life they built before the truth came out. He said that life showed him who she really was. She smiled softly and told him she felt the same. They talked about the future sometimes, but not in grand plans. They spoke about balance, about protecting peace, about choosing quiet strength over loud power years later. When people spoke of their story, they often focused on the secret, the wealth, the surprise. Few understood that the real story was something else. It was about a girl the world dismissed and a man the world misunderstood, finding dignity together on one calm night. Sitting outside under the same sky they once watched in silence, she realized something that made her heart feel full. Her life did not begin when she learned the truth. Her life began the day someone treated her as equal, when she had nothing to offer. That truth stayed with her, steady and unbreakable, and in that quiet understanding, she finally felt free. Life continued to move forward, but it did not rush. It unfolded gently, like a story that knew it did not need noise to be heard. The village had grown used to her presence, not as an orphan girl or a poor wife, but as someone who belonged. Children often gathered near her house in the evenings. Some came to learn, some came just to sit quietly. She never turned anyone away. She taught them small things, how to read simple words, how to count, how to believe they were not invisible. She did not call it teaching. She called it sharing. Sometimes she caught herself smiling at moments that once would have frightened her. Silence no longer felt like punishment. It felt like peace. Her husband watched all of this quietly. He rarely spoke about his pride, but she could see it in his eyes when he watched her help others. He never tried to guide her path. He trusted her instincts completely. One day, a group of men from a nearby area came to the village. They wanted to invest in land and buildings. They had heard stories about him. They spoke with confidence and promises. They offered wealth, power, influence. She sat nearby, listening. He refused calmly. The men were surprised. They tried again, speaking of growth and control. He listened patiently, then explained that not every place needs to be turned into profit. Some places need to remain human. When they left, she asked him if turning them away was difficult. He shook his head. He said peace is always easier to protect than to rebuild. That night, she thought about how different her life had become. Not because she gained power, but because she learned how to say no without fear. There were still challenges. Helping others brought responsibility. Sometimes people depended too much. Sometimes they expected miracles. She learned to set boundaries, gently but firmly. She learned that kindness without balance can become another kind of burden. One evening, she felt tired in a way she had not felt before. Not physical tiredness, but emotional weight. She wondered if she was doing enough. If she was doing too much, her husband noticed her silence and asked her what she needed. She told him she needed rest. So they rested. They closed their doors for a few days. No visitors, no duties. Just quiet mornings, shared meals, slow walks. During that time, she realized how important it was to care for herself, not just others. When she returned to her work, she was stronger. Years passed gently. The village slowly became known for something different. Girls were not rushed into marriage as before. Orphans were not ignored. People began to talk, to question old habits. Change did not come from rules. It came from example. One afternoon, a young woman came to her crying. She was being forced into a marriage she did not want. The story felt painfully familiar. She listened carefully. She did not shout. She did not accuse. She spoke to the family calmly. She explained dignity, choice, and responsibility. It took time, but the marriage was delayed. The girl was given space. That night, she cried again. Not from pain, but from recognition. The past had come full circle. She understood then that her story was no longer just hers. It had become a path for others to walk. Her husband stood beside her in all of this, steady as ever. He never claimed credit. He never spoke of sacrifice. He only reminded her to breathe. One quiet night, as they sat under the stars, she asked him if he ever wondered what his life would have been without her. He smiled softly and said, "He would have been rich and lonely." She laughed gently. Leaning closer, they did not need more words. The village slept around them, unaware that the strongest kind of wealth had already settled quietly among them. And so the story continued, not as a tale of secrets or riches, but as a living reminder that dignity once found can change everything it touches. The years that followed did not rush past her. They moved slowly, gently, as if life itself had learned to walk at her pace. She no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. The village knew her story now, but she did not live inside it anymore. She lived in the present, where every day felt earned. Children who once sat silently near her house grew older. Some learned skills. Some went to study. Some simply learned to believe they mattered. When they returned, they greeted her with respect, not fear. That alone felt like a quiet victory. She often thought about how strange life was. The same village that once laughed at her wedding now came to her for guidance. The same people who looked through her now listened to her words, not because she demanded it, but because time had changed what they saw. Her husband remained the same steady presence beside her. He never rushed her growth. He never stepped ahead of her. He walked with her, matching her pace. Even when the road widened, Sometimes people asked why he did not build something bigger, why he did not show the world who he truly was. He always gave the same answer. He said he already had everything he needed. She understood that answer better than anyone. There were quiet mornings when she woke before sunrise and watched light spread slowly across the fields. In those moments, she remembered the girl she once was, waking early out of fear, preparing for a day of orders in silence. The contrast no longer brought pain. It brought gratitude. She learned that healing does not erase the past. It changes how the past lives inside you. One evening, an elder from the village came to her. His hair was white now, his voice slower. He apologized for things done long ago. He said they failed her when she needed protection. She listened without anger. She told him forgiveness did not mean forgetting, but it meant choosing peace over bitterness. He left lighter than when he came. That night, she sat quietly and realized something important. Forgiveness was not a gift she gave others. It was a freedom she gave herself. As time passed, fewer people spoke about the secret that once shocked everyone. Wealth stopped being the center of the story. What remained was respect. Not forced, earned. She never wore expensive clothes. She never changed her way of speaking. She never tried to appear powerful. People learned that strength does not always announce itself. One day, she was asked to speak to a group of young girls from nearby villages. She stood before them, her hands steady, her voice calm. She told them her life was not a miracle. It was a series of choices, some forced, some chosen. She told them they deserved dignity. Even when the world tried to take it away, some girls cried. Some listened quietly. Some stood taller when she finished. That moment stayed with her. Later that night, she asked her husband if he ever felt tired of being patient. He smiled and said patience is easier when your heart is at peace. She rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the truth of those words. As the years went on, the village slowly became known for something different. People spoke of how girls were treated better there, how orphans were not left alone, how kindness seemed to move through the place like quiet wind. No one pointed to her directly. She preferred it that way. On one calm evening, under a sky full of stars, she realized something that felt like the final piece of her journey. Her life was no longer defined by where she started or what she endured. It was defined by what she chose to become. She was no longer the orphan girl who was forced into marriage. She was a woman who turned silence into strength, loss into understanding, and pain into purpose. Her husband looked at her then, as if sensing her thoughts. He asked if she was happy. She smiled softly and honestly. She said yes. And in that quiet answer, the story found its ending, not with wealth revealed or power displayed, but with a life lived fully, gently, and on her own terms. The end.